Hi, welcome to Memory and Engagement Opportunity for Wellness. My name is Michelle Hobb, and I am a speech language pathologist and also the leader for the special programs here at Meadowlark. Thank you for joining me today. The purpose of this opportunity is to work on some engagement and some attending. We're also going to be learning, exploring, and doing a little bit of remembering. First of all, I want to review a bit about word fluency. So word fluency is something we've worked on in previous sessions where we're working on trying to find words, get those words out as fluently, as smoothly as possible. In order to do that, we develop confidence. So when we're working on word finding, when we're working on conversation or just engaging in conversation with others, we create confidence by having success with our word finding. And the more confidence we have, the more that we communicate. The other thing that we're working on with word fluency is some memory. So word retrieval from those memory storage banks. An example of this might be if you haven't cooked in a while or more culinary cooking types of things. Let's say you did that quite a bit in your earlier years when you were working and you had parties that you would host. Then you might do more fancy types of cooking. So later in your life, you didn't need to do those things and you didn't do those things as often. So now a way to work on some word fluency would be to try to work on the memory of some of those words that are used in the culinary world. That's a great way to develop and work on memory and word fluency. Association. Staying with that same concept of the culinary world, then we can look at association word fluency, how one word relates to another word or one concept blends into another concept. When we're able to use word associations, it helps our listener to understand more of what we are saying and communicating. The last thing that word fluency helps us to elicit is flexible thinking. When we do flexible thinking, we're thinking about things that may not necessarily be right down the straight and narrow path. We're thinking about things that could be different semantically. It could be in a completely different genre. So whatever it is, but it's making you think outside of the box, which again, leads to different types of semantics and word usage as well. So last week I had you work on naming things that were related to Independence Day. And so I wanted to just kind of touch back on that. And number one, make sure that you did your homework. And if you didn't do your homework, to give you a cue and a clue to do it this week. So grab your paper and your pencil and jot down that you need to write down words that are related to Independence Day. So when we think back and look at our word fluency concepts here, we can look at things from our memory. We can think of things that are associated with Independence Day, and we can think of Independence Day in more than one world. So maybe it is looking at it in terms of the history of Independence Day. Maybe it's looking at the celebrations of Independence Day. So all of those things help us come up with more word fluency opportunities, as well as increasing our confidence in word finding. So I just gave you a few examples of how you could look at subcategories. And the reason I brought that up again this week is that in previous weeks, we've talked about making subcategories to allow you the opportunity to increase those words that you're looking for within a larger category. So if we took some of those subcategories again, just to reiterate, it could be the history of Independence Day, words that are related to that. It could be ways to celebrate Independence Day. And it could be maybe even foods to celebrate, foods we think of, or other types of things that make us proud to be able to celebrate Independence Day. Another task that you could do with this would be to jot down every letter of the alphabet and then write a word that is associated with Independence Day that starts with each letter of the alphabet. So, for example, apple pie doesn't get much more down home American than apple pie. And then you would do the same thing for B and C and so on. So try that. And again, if you didn't do it last week, go ahead and jot it down and do it this week. I want to start off with a video here. This is just a short little video that's going to give you some information about memory and how we begin to store memory, as well as some tools that we can use to help us increase our ability to remember. So here is our short video.
Think back to a really vivid memory. Got it? Okay, now try to remember what you had for lunch 3 weeks ago. That second memory probably isn't as strong. But why not? Why do we remember some things and not others? And why do memories eventually fade? Let's look at how memories form in the first place. When you experience something, like dialing a phone number, the experience is converted into a pulse of electrical energy that zips along a network of neurons. Information first lands in short-term memory, where it's available from anywhere from a few seconds to a couple of minutes. It's then transferred to long-term memory through areas such as the hippocampus and finally to several storage regions across the brain. Neurons throughout the brain communicate at dedicated sites called synapses using specialized neurotransmitters. If two neurons communicate repeatedly, a remarkable thing happens. The efficiency of communication between them increases. This process, called long-term potentiation, is considered to be a mechanism by which memories are stored long-term. But how do some memories get lost? Age is one factor. As we get older, synapses begin to falter and weaken, affecting how easily we can retrieve memories. Scientists have several theories about what's behind this deterioration. From actual brain shrinkage, the hippocampus loses 5% of its neurons every decade, for a total loss of 20% by the time you're 80 years old, to the drop in the production of neurotransmitters like acetylcholine, which is vital to learning and memory. These changes seem to affect how people retrieve stored information. Age also affects our memory-making abilities. Memories are encoded most strongly when we're paying attention, when we're deeply engaged, and when information is meaningful to us. Mental and physical health problems, which tend to increase as we age, interfere with our ability to pay attention and thus act as memory thieves. Another leading cause of memory problems is chronic stress. When we're constantly overloaded with work and personal responsibilities, our bodies are on hyper alert. This response has evolved from the physiological mechanism designed to make sure we can survive any crisis. Stress chemicals help mobilize energy and increase alertness. However, with chronic stress, our bodies become flooded with these chemicals, resulting in a loss of brain cells and an inability to form new ones, which affects our ability to retain new information. Depression is another culprit. People who are depressed are 40% more likely to develop memory problems. Low levels of serotonin, a neurotransmitter connected to arousal, may make depressed individuals less attentive to new information. Dwelling on sad events in the past, another symptom of depression, makes it difficult to pay attention to the present, affecting the ability to store short-term memories. Isolation, which is tied to depression, is another memory thief. A study by the Harvard School of Public Health found that older people with high levels of social integration had a slower rate of memory decline over a 6-year period. The exact reason remains unclear, but experts suspect that social interaction gives our brain a mental workout. Just like muscle strength, we have to use our brain or risk losing it. But don't despair. There are several steps you can take to aid your brain in preserving your memories. Make sure you keep physically active. Increased blood flow to the brain is helpful. And eat well. Your brain needs all the right nutrients to keep functioning correctly. And finally, give your brain a workout. Exposing your brain to challenges like learning a new language is one of the best defenses for keeping your memories intact.
Okay. So I hope that you were able to process all of that information and not get stuck on the very beginning, because when I really hesitated as to whether or not to show this video, because in the very beginning it seems that it's so negative about age and you lose 20% and it's age and age. So you almost get the feeling that if you're aged, then there's no hope. But I want to make sure that that is pushed out of the way. That is not the case. We can still use our brain well and effectively, and we can still change our brain due to neuroplasticity even as we age. So I want to make sure that that negativity is out of the picture. So let's go on to, oops. Let me see here. Here we go. Okay. So the summary of the memory video. So what we learned through this too is that there are a couple of things, and another one that I don't think I kind of combined this together with the depression is isolation. So you heard them talk about stress, and stress can be good for us. It puts us on alert. It allows us to process information and to act on it quickly. However, chronic stress, continued and repeated stress makes the chemicals in our brain be unable to allow our brain to have those neural connections, those synaptic responses that you got to see in the very beginning. Also depression and isolation, which again, I really kind of clump those two together. Again, depression can be, and most often is a chemical system that is causing changes within the brain that make it challenging, if not impossible, for people to focus and attend to the here and now. And remember, we've talked week after week, if you cannot process on what's directly in front of you, attend and focus on that, there's no way that that information is going to get to that short-term memory, let alone the long-term memory. Isolation is the same thing. Without that stimulation, we can become depressed. And again, that just starts that cycle of the inability to attend. If I'm severely depressed or isolated, I'm focusing on internal issues. I'm focusing on how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, rather than looking at the external world of what I want to be able to remember. So I would just like to take this moment, that we are in a very unsocial, ungathering time of our world. We really need to rely on the things that we can, and that is the telephone or video conferencing, or being with others but 6 feet away and with our masks. We have to do those things in order to help give our brains the chemicals that it needs so that we can learn and we can focus and we can remember. So I just really want to plead with you to take the time to be connected. If you are experiencing depression, isolation, please talk with someone. We have social workers here. You have your weekly Wellness Warrior phone calls from myself and Becky and Kathleen and Bridget. And then, of course, you have your physician. Please don't hesitate to talk to your physician about help to get you out of that depression. So those are the negative parts that can really affect our memory. We got rid of those. So now what can we do to help our memory, to help our world before us and create those moments that we can remember later on? Number one is engagement. Just the opposite of that isolation. We have to be engaged. So, whether, again, that's through video or telephone or somewhat face-to-face meetings, we have to take the initiative to be engaged. And when we are with those people, again, no matter what medium that is, we have to attend and focus on them. The other thing is exercise. So exercise, physical activity, is great for the brain. So if we can increase that blood flow, if we can increase the heart rate, all of those things help us to help our brain be healthier. Because don't forget, what's good for the heart is good for the brain. You got it. Nice job. And then, of course, nutrition. So if we are eating healthy, we're eating those fruits and vegetables that are really good for our brains, for memories, and for attention. We're eating not as high of a fat diet. I always tend to make sure that people don't. Let me back that up. I always want to reinforce that people do not completely avoid fats. One of the ways I always think about how fats are good for the brain is that it's almost like your brain is a bunch of gears, and you have to keep some oil on those gears in order for them to keep churning and to keep working. We have a wonderful dietitian, Lisa, and she is more than happy to meet with you and talk with you. Well, meet via phone or video call, but talk to you if you're struggling with, I don't know what to eat. I don't know what is good for my brain. She can definitely talk with you about those things too. So those are 3 things that you have power over. Do something. Be active, eat and drink well. Make sure you're drinking water, and be engaged. Be connected with others. Those are the keys from the video that I want you to take home. So that kind of leads us to one of the things that I really wanted to bring up with you this week. And that is the what am I here after? I had a memory class last week with some individuals, and what we were discussing is one of their greatest frustrations with memory is that they are in one room, something strikes them that they need from another room, they go into that other room, they get there, and then they just freeze. They don't remember what they are there after. So how do you combat that? What kinds of techniques can you use? What do you do when you go into a room and you can't remember what you're there for? So the key things that we discussed are going back to what we talked about on the last slide, paying attention. If you are in your living room and you're watching TV and all of a sudden you think, oh man, I really could go for a Reese's peanut butter cup right now. I really am craving a Reese's peanut butter cup, and this is really true also. But you're thinking that and you say, okay, I'm going to get up and go get that Reese's peanut butter cup. But it's not the end of your show. It's not till a commercial yet. So you sit there and wait. And then you waited just for another minute or so. And then you're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go get up. So you get up and you go to the kitchen or wherever you keep your Reese's peanut butter cups. And you stand there and you wonder, why did I leave my comfy chair? I was really enjoying that show. Something struck me that I really wanted. Now I don't remember what it was. So what I recommend here is that number one, do it right away. So instead of waiting until it's a commercial to get up and go get that Reese's peanut butter cup, you just get up right then. And then you also talk to yourself, say it aloud, what it is that you're doing until you actually have the item or you've completed the task at hand. So the same situation, I'm watching TV and I really want that Reese's peanut butter cup. So I jump up and I go do it right now. And the whole time I'm walking, I'm saying Reese's, 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 peanut butter cup, peanut butter cup, peanut butter cup, until I make it into the kitchen and I find my Reese's peanut butter cup, I peel it, and then I can enjoy it. So what that does is that if I'm talking to myself, it's pretty hard to ignore myself, right? So it's easy still for other people to ignore us, but we don't care if someone else is ignoring us. All we care about is getting that stinking Reese's peanut butter cup. So we just say it over and over and over again. We're focused, we're paying attention, we're saying it, so we've got that motor system involved, and we're hearing it, so we've got the auditory system involved. It's a lot harder to forget what you're there after if you do these 2 things. So I want you to try that this week. And excuse me, I need to get through the rest of that there. I want you to try that this week, and I'll give you a little more detail here in a second. So the walk down memory lane, each week we try to log in our journal or just on a piece of paper, something that gets us to think about long-term memory. What is something that brings back good or bad or exciting memories from your long-term memory? So this week, what I want you to think about is your most challenging memory activity. So this may not necessarily, as in previous weeks, may not necessarily be a jog down memory lane, but I want you to think about maybe in the last few months, maybe pre-COVID even, and then things that are happening now. What's your most challenging memory activity? Is it that you're struggling with keeping track of the days? Because that's a real thing. Is it that you can't remember, if you've, I don't know, if you bought groceries recently? Is it that you can't remember when your great niece's birthday is? Whatever it might be, or what your neighbor's name is. What are the things that are causing you challenges with your memory or even your daily living skills? I'd like for you then to practice gratitude by then saying, okay, well, this is really hard, but this is really easy. So I may not be able to remember what my neighbor's name is, but I can remember all of my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren and their birthdays. So being grateful and practicing gratitude helps us along our walk down memory lane by triggering those things from our past, and also by just releasing some of those endorphins, those positive dopamine producing activities that create that ability in your brain to be calm and to remember. And if we're focusing on the positive, it's a lot harder to think about the negative. All right, so when you think about your most challenging memory activity, I'd like you to email me. It's M as in Michelle, Hobb, at meadowlark.org. So MHAUB at meadowlark.org. And let me know, what is your most challenging memory activity? This way I can then also help to plan some of our future sessions. If I know some of the things that are bothering you or things that are getting you kind of frustrated, I can work on some sessions to help conquer some of those frustrations. If you don't want to email me, that's fine. You can also just turn it into the hospitality desk. Jana, Monty, Michelle, any of them would be happy to take your most frustrating memory challenge. You don't have to share it. You can just, fold it up and hand it to them, and then they'll get it to me. I just pick it up at the shack. So share with me what your greatest memory challenge is. So your homework each day is to move multiple times a day. And this week I'm also going to be more specific. I want you to march in place. So remember, full body here. Those legs are moving, those arms are moving. Every commercial of your favorite show. So let's say that my favorite show, I love The Voice or I love The Good Doctor. So I'm going to watch that show, and every commercial I'm going to march in place, either seated or standing, for the entire period of those commercials. Not just one set of commercials, everyone. Okay, so that is your homework. So at least once a day, I'd like you to watch your favorite show and march in place for every commercial. We didn't do it this week, but I want you to continue practicing with your deep and focused breathing. It's still important to think about getting that good deep breath versus a shallow breath. When we're breathing up here, we're not able to really cleanse our system, really get deep and focused to allow us to attend to things that we would like to pay attention to. It's also a great way to reduce that stress. Remember, that stress was one of those big culprits of our memory abilities. So do your deep breathing every day to help reduce stress and improve your ability to attend to tasks. That leads perfectly into finding time each day to attend to a task. And then connect. This week, again, I'm giving you a little add as a bonus, if you will, but I want you to call someone that you haven't talked to in more than a week. So think of those people that you haven't talked to and call at least one of them and communicate with them, making sure that you're having that give and take, that turn-taking conversation. And remember, the brain loves to be challenged. You heard it in the video too, so I'm not just making this stuff up. I want you to talk to yourself. So again, we don't want to be wandering around this whole world wondering, what am I here after, right? So when you want something, you need to do something, you have a job, talk to yourself until you've completed the task. And then you will have done it, you will feel great, and you'll be happy to move to the next thing. So your homework, talk to yourself. Until next time, continue to practice your physical distancing, wear your mask, stay connected with others. I gave you lots of examples of what to do this week and how to do it, and be well. I know this is a really challenging time. We talked about this earlier in our session, but please remember, stress and depression and isolation are the things that can really kibosh your memory. So stay engaged, wear your mask, be physically active, and be well. Have a great week. Bye-bye.